So let's talk about what a story is. This is my favorite definition of a story. A story is a reimagined experience, narrated with enough detail and feeling to cause your listener's imagination to experience it as real. Now, remember, we don't tell a story for us, we tell a story for them. And so if we tell a story in a way that they engage with it, they emotionally, mentally, they can imagine it, they can picture it, they are more likely to act on that story. And so if your story is to move them to buy your product, they're more likely to do that. If your story is to move them to a specific conclusion, they're more likely to accept that. So here's the foundation for influential storytelling, and this is crucial. You don't retell a story, you relive a story. I want you to really hear that. You don't retell a story, you relive a story. Because when you relive a story, you automatically invite other people in to relive it with you. The stories that I've told you so far in this program, I've been reliving those stories. I paint a picture, I jump into the emotion, I make it present. And so the question then is, how do you relive a story? I want to teach you 3 techniques that are going to help you to bring the audience into the story. So come with me to the flip chart. We're going to dive into this and dissect it a little bit, because what we're talking about is how do you relive a story, right? How do you make it so that they can relive it with you? There's 3 specific techniques that are simple, they're easy, but they make a world of difference in terms of how someone hears your story. So number 1, you want to create curiosity. Okay, curiosity is a storyteller's best friend. Here's the truth, and this is kind of a hard truth. Nobody cares about your story. Like not even your mom, nobody at all, unless they see how it pertains to them, right? Unless it's something that piques their curiosity, unless it's something that they want to understand. So how do you create curiosity? Here's how you do it. You ask a you-focused question on the front end of a story. A you-focused question means the word you is in the question. So here's the technique. I'm going to tap into your world with a question, and then I'm going to bring you into my world with a story. You see, that you-focused question, it's just simple, right? Have you ever had this experience? Have you ever experienced something? Just a couple minutes ago, I did this as I told you the story about Stephen Covey. I said, how many of you have ever read the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? That's a simple question, and the technique is I'm going to tap into your world with that question, and then you're curious, and I'm going to bring you into my world with a story. Some people just jump right into a story. They just like dive in, or they say, let me tell you my story. And whether it's conscious or subconscious, we kind of say, well, I don't really care, right? But if you create that dialogue, that engagement, with that you-focused question, all of a sudden they're curious. Simple technique, very important. Second technique is I want you to place them in the scene. This can be done by saying it one of 2 ways. You can say, imagine being here. I want to physically place you in the scene. Or you can say, if you had been here when, right? I could tell you a story where I could say, if you had been sitting in my office with me, the first time I ever had to interview somebody, I was so nervous. I'm sitting there, I'm sitting behind my desk, my knees are shaking, the person's walking in, I still don't know what I'm gonna say. Okay, just stop for a second. What are you picturing in your mind right now? Are you in an office? Are you sitting behind a desk? Do you see that happening? Because I placed you in the scene by saying, if you had been in my office with me, if you had been there when, I just physically place you there. Because what happens is I want you to co-create the scene. I want you to see it. I want you to start to picture it. This is why when you read a book, sometimes you're disappointed with the movie, right? Have you ever gone to a movie and you're like, no, that doesn't make sense. Like, why did they cast Tom Cruise as Jack Reacher? He's not big enough. Like, it doesn't make sense in your mind, right? The reason is because the author did a good job of getting you into the scene so you could see it. We can do the same thing as we tell stories. That allows people to be more emotionally engaged. They can see it in their mind's eye. The imagination starts to kick in, right? Third technique. I want you to reinforce relatability. Relatability is important. And relatability means that you have a conversational tone in the way that you speak. You say things like, have you ever felt that before? Do you know what I mean? Have you ever experienced something like that? Oh my gosh, what would you do in that situation? It's like you're right here in the story, and for just a second, you're going to step out and you're going to kind of throw it back on the audience, right? Are you with me? Just engage them. And here's the truth. I've been doing this the entire time. Have you noticed? Do you see how I just did it right there? Like, it's just a natural conversational way to speak. And when you do that, you kind of throw it back on the audience and keep them engaged with the story. So if we want to relive a story, here's 3 simple techniques. Before you dive into the story, you're going to ask a you-focused question to pique their curiosity. Tap into their world with a question, and then bring them right into your world with your story. Then as the story begins, you're going to place them in the scenes. Say, imagine being here. If you had been here when? They start to see it. They start to picture it, right? Then maybe once or twice, there's just going to be kind of a conversational flow in how you're telling that story, where you're going to throw it back on them. What would you do in that situation? Have you ever met somebody like that? Can you imagine what that would feel like? Just simple, natural things that you're going to keep their engagement. And as you do that, you're not only going to relive the story, but you're going to bring the audience in so they can relive it with you.